Hello, I'm Richard. This is Over and Over and Over Again. We're live, and this is my latest show. Hello, I'm Richard. Welcome back to my channel Over and Over and Over Again. This is just something I'm just trying a little bit different today, just to show on my own, just to go over some of the latest news that's going on at Arsenal. If you're in the chat and you want to get involved, just drop your comments in. If you want stuff you want to talk about, give your opinion on the different topics, that would be great as well. And if anybody out there does want to maybe pop onto the show as well, let me know and I can send you a link to that as well. So obviously there is a lot to talk about, so I suppose there's only one place that we can really start, isn't there, with everything that's gone on. I mean, being an Arsenal fan, it's always quite a lot's going on anyway at the best of times. Obviously this last week or so, everything's just gone crazy, hasn't it, with so much stuff going on. And I thought the best way to do it, or rather than do separate videos on each individual topic, is just maybe do a live show and cover as much of it as I can in one go. Then we can get it out of the way before clearing the decks, if you like, to look forward to the semi-final on Thursday. So for me, as I said, there's only really one place we can start, and that is with this guy. Now, I've got to be honest with you, up until Friday, I never even knew who he was. I'd never heard of him, didn't know anything about him at all. Obviously, I've heard of Spotify. This show is going out on Spotify actually as well. So, but I didn't know who he was. So that came as a bit of a shock on Friday when it all came out that he was interested in buying Arsenal. Of course, Daniel Ek, the CEO, of Spotify, a co-founder as well, I think he is. Now, it'd be great, wouldn't it, to have someone who's got Arsenal at their heart, obviously running the club and being in control of everything. You'd imagine that would be great, but I'm not sure what this was all about. When it first came out on Friday, I'm thinking, is it just a publicity stunt for him to boost his business? And in fact, the shares in Spotify have gone up, haven't they, since Friday? So, but then of course this morning woke up to the news that three of the Invincible team, three of the most famous, probably three of our greatest players in the club's history, have all joined up apparently with Daniel Ek to look at buying out the Kroenkes. And of course Thierry Henry, Dennis Bergkamp and Patrick Vieira, I say three of our greatest ever players. Now suddenly this becomes a little bit more interesting, doesn't it? I'm assuming that they've had conversations with Daniel, and they must be quite serious about taking this forward. Now obviously on paper potentially it looks fantastic, doesn't it? You know, what better people could we have in charge of the club? Three of our greatest ex-players and a billionaire who's an Arsenal fan. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that, does it? And there's all kinds of, dreams that we're having of signing all these great players and winning the Premier League 10 years in a row and all kinds of stuff like that. But it's all a little bit of a pipe dream at the moment, isn't it? I think for this to happen, a lot would need to change, wouldn't it? I mean, first of all, the Kroenkes would need to sell. That's the first thing. Now, I think there's only two reasons why they would actually sell. And I think the first reason why they would sell would be if there's government legislation comes in, meaning they haven't got any choice in the matter, in terms of the owners of clubs and this, that, and the other. If the government step in and put some legislation in place, then they might have to sell. And I think that would be the only two. That would be the first reason why I think they would sell. And secondly, maybe if they just decide they don't want to bother with the hassle that it is, being the owners of Arsenal. I'm not sure if they'll do that. Bearing in mind, if you remember, they've ridden out public criticism throughout their time in sport, haven't they? In America, in particular, they've moved clubs into different states, and the uproar that caused, and they didn't walk away. So, in fact, I don't think they've ever sold a club that they've bought, have they? So, I think it's very unlikely that off their own back they would sell. If there's legislation in place that means they have to, then that might be different. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the takeover from Daniel Ek and the Arsenal Invincibles would automatically go through. It depends on what's in the legislation, I guess, doesn't it? But we'll have to see what happens. I've got to be honest, I'm not confident that the Kroenkes are going to sell, just because that's not what they do. If they did sell, I think it would be only really when, it was right for their business, I suppose. And they've never sold a club previously, so I very much doubt they would want to do that now, I'll be amazed. And you know, the protest on Friday, don't get me wrong, it looked fantastic. I couldn't be there, unfortunately, but fantastic for the guys that went. I know a lot of people that did go, and it was great, you know. And I think part of that was, you know, getting everybody together. You know, we haven't been able to go to games for a long time. It was a great opportunity for that. And also, I think the frustrations that we've all suffered over the last couple of years, particularly, you know, through this lockdown period of not being able to go to games and the poor results on the pitch, maybe all came out in one go. I mean, let's face it, the Kroenkes have been in charge a long time, haven't they? So it's, if we were going to protest about getting them out, we should have maybe done that a long time ago, shouldn't we, really, I suppose, because they've been an issue at the club for what, 10 years or more. So and this has all brought it to a head, and maybe that's a good thing, but I don't think that they'll care about the protest, if I'm totally honest. You know, we can protest every week for the next 6 months, and I don't think it's going to alter their project. Whether or not they want to sell or not is going to have nothing to do with the protest. I think it's going to come down to two reasons. One is if they have to for the legislation, or two, if it suits their business model, which I don't believe it will, certainly not at this point. I mean, I do want to go on to a little bit in a minute about the so-called lack of investment actually from the Kroenkes and under their kind of leadership. There's a couple of people in the comments actually, which is always nice to see. Shane, he says Daniel Ek seems to be good. Seems too good to be true. Yeah, let's see. Hopefully, no, I agree. It does seem a little bit too good to be true. I say the shares of Spotify have gone up as well since Friday, so it's a good marketing thing for him anyway, if nothing else, isn't it? But let's hope there's more to. And then maybe it might have done otherwise. But we'll see, obviously, what happens with that. And Terry's in the chat there as well. How you doing, Terry? Good evening. Thanks for tuning in as well. Tony C as well. Looks good and sounds good. So what roles will the three legends have is only concern. Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming they would maybe be more on the recruitment side, perhaps. That would perhaps be my kind of guess, I would say. I don't know for certain, but my guess would be that, yeah, that they would maybe have something to do with that side of it, maybe possibly even you know, director of football or something like that. At least one of them would take on that role, you would imagine, wouldn't you? But unless they just want to stay behind the scenes, if you like, and just deal with the actual running of the club and the finances and that kind of stuff, I'm not really sure that they've got that experience in that, have they? You know, the one thing about businessmen is they know how to run a business, don't they, and how to make money. So I would say, obviously, Daniel Ek would be the guy to be in charge of that side of things, and then let the football guys maybe concentrate on what they know best, which would be the football side of the club, wouldn't they? You know, in terms of, say, recruitment, developing young players and all that kind of stuff. So that would be good, wouldn't it, if that was the sort of roles they took on. But yeah, we'll have to see how that develops, should that ever happen. At the moment, I don't think it's likely to happen anytime soon. But if the government get involved and, I say, legislation comes in place, you never know. It might turn out to be that's going to be the way they might be forced to sell, and then we'll see what happens at that point. But yeah, there's a lot of speculation with it all at the moment, obviously, and you know, it's almost like, as I think Shane said, too good to be true. It almost does seem too good to be true, doesn't it? But we'll see what happens. I mean, if this did eventually go through, I'm sure we'd all be delighted to have Arsenal people involved in running a club, and I think we haven't had that, have we, since David Dean. He was a massive fan of the club, wasn't he, when he joined the board back in 1983. Look how much success we had in his time there. Of course, he left in 2007, if you remember. So all that period there was probably the most successful period in the club's history, actually, wasn't it? And it just goes to show that having an Arsenal man in control, or certainly having a big say in the control, is probably the way forward for us if we're ever going to turn things around and challenge again where we want to be, at the top of the league. Gary's in the chat as well. How are you doing, Gary? Thanks for watching. And B Roofing. He says, evening, Terry. You must know Terry as well. Good. Well, thanks for tuning in. Obviously, in terms of the finance, actually, I was looking into it a little bit earlier today, actually, about the money that the club have spent under since the Kroenkes have been involved. Bearing in mind, they did first get involved in 2008, a year after David Dean left. Now, we've broken our transfer record, actually, since 2013. We've broken our transfer record 4 times. So we've spent money. I feel that the biggest problem has been the people that's in charge of spending the money, the recruitment team, have been where the problems have been. Of course, I think we were tied in a little bit when Raul was doing it. If you remember, he seemed to only buy players off certain agents. He was doing favours to his mates at certain clubs like Lille, etc. And I think the money was wasted. I mean, we first broke our transfer record in 2013. We were signing a Mesut Ozil, £42 million. Club spent that money there who at the time was a very good player. Didn't maybe work out totally as we hoped it would. Then, the following year, actually, 2014, we spent £38 million on Alexis Sanchez, and that maybe did work out a little bit better, didn't it? We also paid £18 million for Callum Chambers that same time, 2014, and £13 million on both Gabriel, the Brazilian defender, not the one we've got now, obviously, the original Gabriel that we had, and Debuchy as well, who's a right back from Newcastle. Neither of them two really worked out either, did they? So not great money spent there. And I think 18 million in 2014 for Callum Chambers with the number of games that he's played probably wasn't great value either, was it? In 2016, of course, we spent 40 million on Granit Xhaka. I know a lot of people have criticised Granit Xhaka, but he's played a lot of games for the club. He's won us, 2 FA Cups. So he's probably been just about value for money, I guess. But we did pay 37 million for Mustafi the same summer, which obviously didn't turn out to be a good value, did it? And Perez as well, we paid 18 million pounds on Perez. Of course, the striker, again, that didn't really work out, did it? We lost money on him. Didn't really make many appearances for the club at all. I thought he looked a half-decent player, actually, but he never quite seemed to fit in, did he? Also, as well, that summer we did a good buy, I would say, in terms of the value for money, with Rob Holding, 2.5 million. That was a good deal, wasn't it? He's offered us decent service. I know he's had a few injuries, but, here he is sort of 5 years later, still at the club. And that was a good deal. I think we could obviously sell him on for a profit if we decided to do that. Of course, we then broke our transfer record twice in 6 months, didn't we? Lacazette, first of all, £47 million we paid for him. I suppose that's, probably the going rate for a striker who at that time was scoring 25, 30 goals a season, wasn't he, for Lyon? Again, he hasn't quite hit the ground for us as we'd expected. He's done okay. Again, he's helped us win 2 FA Cups, hasn't he? Actually, no, he joined after we won. He's won 1 FA Cup, hasn't he, Lacazette? Maybe hasn't scored as many goals as we hoped. And then, of course, 6 months later, we broke our transfer record again, 57 million for Aubameyang. And I think overall, Aubameyang's been a successful transfer. A lot of money, considering his age at the time. I think he was 28, wasn't he? He scored a lot of goals for us, obviously, and he's now the club captain. But you have to say we maybe overpaid a little bit for him. Tony Caesar's recruitment has been so poor, yes. It has, and this is kind of explaining it a little bit more, really, for people that maybe aren't really aware. In 2018, of course, after Arsene Wenger left and Unai Emery came in, we spent 25 million on Torreira. Was that good? Was that good value? We spent a lot of money again. 22.5 million on Bernd Leno. I would say that's a decent enough buy. 14 million on Socrates. Cheap enough, I suppose. Hasn't really worked out. 7 million on Guendouzi was a decent deal, actually, because I think if we sold him on, we'd get a lot more than that now. And if we kept him, I think he's definitely worth more than 7 million. He's more than a £7 million player, isn't he? So that wasn't a bad time then in terms of money spent. And again, we're spending out money, aren't we? It's not like we've not been spending money on the team. We haven't bought the right players. That seems to be the issue. Of course, 2019 saw us break our transfer record again. I say the 4th time since 2013. And we all know that hasn't worked out quite as we expected either. Nicola Pepe, 72 million. We know the reason why we paid that much for him. Again, I say due to Raul doing his mate a favour at Lille. Also, as well, you've got Saliba. We paid £27 million for him. He's not even played a game for the club. Nearly 2 years ago, we bought him. So that's not really been great value, has it, for 27 million? Tierney was 24 million. Probably a good deal, that is. I know he's had a lot of injuries, but when he's fit, he's a great player. So that's probably okay. David Luiz, 7.8 million. His wages have been high. That's the other issue I want to come to as well. The wages that we've been paying some of these players as well. Massive drain on the resources, but again, where does that money come from? Yes, you could say the Cronkies aren't putting the hand in their pocket. It's to do with the sponsorship, the TV money, all that kind of stuff. It is, but ultimately it's still money going in and out of the business, isn't it? And people that run a business are very careful about the money that goes in and out. So this is money that we're spending, aren't we? We spent a lot of money here. So and then obviously more up to date, of course, more recently, Gabriel, we paid 23 million for him. That seems a decent enough deal. Young defender. Done well, hasn't he? 45 million for Partey at the time we thought was all right, but that's looking to be quite expensive, isn't it? Not necessarily the best deal there. Could we not have maybe got him cheaper? I know there was a buyout clause. That's not really worked out. We also spent 4.5 million on Pablo Mari, which actually looks to be quite a decent deal. He looks a decent player. He's a little bit older, of course, than Gabriel. He's 27, I think, isn't he? But he looks as though that's not a bad deal, is it, for 4.5 million? So there's been a few decent ones in recent years, but there's also been some horrendous mistakes, expensive mistakes that we've lost a lot of money on. And I say, you look when you take into account the wages as well. Obviously, we know about Ozil's big contract. Sanchez was on a good money, wasn't he, before he left? I know he wanted more. And it's a shame maybe we didn't give that to him instead. But anyway, we waste money there. Obviously, Aubameyang is now on his big, massive contracts as well. We've got Willian, who we got on a free transfer again, big wages. A lot of these things, the way the club's been run on that side of things, which isn't necessarily the Kroenke's fault, is it? Yes, they've maybe employed some of these people, or they've kept them longer than they should have done. But that's not directly their fault, is it? They've been the money's been going out of the club. It's just been going out in the wrong way, to the wrong people, buying the wrong players, giving wrong contracts to the wrong players, and all this kind of stuff. So the club's been run the wrong way. And I'm not sure what day-to-day activities the Kroenkes have. I don't think it's that much, is it? They just basically funding the thing, aren't they? Or they're dealing with the funding side of it. Other people are in the jobs to recruit players, to sort out contracts and all that kind of stuff. At the moment, we've got Edu doing it. We've had Raul before. We had Sven Mislintat, didn't we? Who I actually felt was a decent appointment at the time. And he never lasted, did he? Maybe because he didn't want to deal with a system that was in place in terms of stuff behind the scenes with Raul and stuff like that. We don't really know exactly what went on there. So I don't blame Kroenkes on their own. Don't get me wrong. I want them out of the club. I've never been in support of them. But, I think it's easy to look at them and say, well, they don't invest money. But we've spent a lot of money, as I say, since 2013. We've spent huge amounts of money on transfer fees. We've spent huge amounts of money on wages for these players that haven't been good enough. And that's down to the people that have recruited the players. We've now got Edu in charge of that. Have things improved? Yes, I would say slightly with some of the recruitment that we've had, certainly over the last year or so. Gabriel, a good signing, I think. I think Partey will be a good signing. I just feel as at this moment in time, it's not working out for him. The injuries that he's had and stuff like that. I say Pablo Mari is probably a decent deal. Cedric as well. Good squad players that haven't really cost that much money in comparison to other players. But a lot of work needs to be done going forward. If we're going to challenge again, it's not just about getting owners in place who are going to fund it. It's about getting the right people in place. And maybe that's where the three legends, if you like, come in. Henry, Bergkamp and Vieira, would they be more involved in that side of it? And if they are, then that could be the answer, couldn't it? Because they do understand football at least, and they understand players, and they understand what it takes to build a successful team, because they were part of the most successful team probably that we've had. Or certainly the best team that we've had, not necessarily the most successful, because I think some teams have won more trophies maybe, but they were certainly the best team that we've had. And there's been a few more comments coming in as well, which is always nice to see. Gary there says, outside marketing PR, what part of Arsenal is good? You from Wenger era. No, that's a good point, actually. What part of Arsenal is good at the moment? Not very much. Yes, there are some good young players, as you mentioned there. A few that's been playing in the first team. Obviously, ESR and Saka are the two that stand out. There's a few others in the academy at the moment, and they are left over from the Wenger era still, aren't they? A lot of these young players. There's a few more coming through that have been added into the club in the last 2 or 3 years, and there's a few positives there. But I don't even think the marketing and PR has been that good, has it, actually, when you look at it? In fact, there's been a few PR disasters in actual fact, hasn't there? Not least, of course, the stuff that went on this time last week that we were all talking about. So there isn't a lot that's been good about Arsenal, is there, at the moment? From top to the bottom of the club, massive changes are needed if we are going to turn all this around and become the sort of club that we were 15 years ago, say, certainly maybe when we was at Highbury. And I always felt that things were always going to change, wasn't they, moving to the Emirates anyway, regardless of who the owners were. That took up a lot of funds, didn't it, the stadium. But I say, since that's sort of been cleared, you can see the money that we've spent. We've certainly spent money. We should have been a lot more successful with the money that we've spent. And so you can't really blame the owners for that necessarily. It's not just on them, is it? They've put the money up, or they've allowed the club to spend that money, if you like. I suppose that might be more to do with it. People say they haven't put their hand in their pocket. We don't know, do we? We don't know how much of that's come out of their money. When you look at what we've got back on players that we've sold, we certainly have not. We've not brought back in the money from players that we've sold, have we, to what we spent out over that same time frame. So they must have funded certain amounts of it. So they didn't, for example, say to spend £37 million on Mustafi, did they? Somebody at the club dealing with the recruitment at that time decided to do that. So, I'm not saying that I say I want them out. I'm not saying they're not blameless, but I don't blame them for everything. There's a lot more issues that's gone on, I think so. Terry says in the chat there, why do we always leave it to the last minute on the last day? Yeah, we always seem to do that, don't we? And is that because we think we can get a better deal at the last minute? A bit like the if you're trying to sell your car, you hang on, don't you, and try to get it cheaper at the last minute, or if you're bidding on something on eBay, do you know what I mean? And I don't know whether or not that's part of it, or whether it's just the way that club want to do things. Ultimately, I don't suppose it matters too much, does it? Yes, it'd be nice from our point of view to get the players in early. They've got time to adapt and to train with the squad before the season starts, but that's not how transfers work. There's so many things to sort out, and most of these deals we do get them done, even if it is a little bit last minute sometimes, and it feels like a panic, and it keeps the excitement going, I suppose. But yeah, I would like us to do it a little bit early. But ultimately, as long as we get the players that we need at a decent price, then that's the most important thing, because transfers are a long-term thing, aren't they? These players are going to hopefully be at the club for 3 or 4 years, and if it means we bought them 2 or 3 weeks later than we could have done, ultimately in the overall scheme of things, it's not a massive problem, is it? I suppose, because they're going to be there long-term. But yeah, it would be a lot easier if we got them earlier, because they would have time to adapt before having to play, I suppose. That's the one way to look at it from my point of view. Shane's in the chat again. He says, all players we let leave for nothing, and giving huge wages for poor players. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, players' mentality we signed is terrible. And again, that comes down to the recruitment, doesn't it? How much are they looking into these players before they sign them, in terms of their mentality, in terms of the other aspects? It's not just about how good a player is technically, or stuff like that, is it? It's how they're going to adapt to English football, because a lot of these players are coming from foreign leagues, and like you said, the mentality that they've got. And unfortunately, a lot of those players that I've mentioned there, their mentality hasn't been right, has it? It's been, a lot of them have had the wrong attitude to the whole thing, and they haven't worked out. And I say, like you said, contracts, they want a lot of money, you know what I mean, and they don't have the right attitude either. So it is an issue. It is a problem. Tony there says, we're still paying £350,000 on Ozil's wage. Exactly. And this is again to do with the people that organise these contracts. The guys like Raul and people like that have now left the club, but we're still dealing with that. And unfortunately, until these issues have been finished and these players are off the wage bill completely, it's not just him, is it? I mean, Kolasinac, I think we're still paying some of his wages, and one or two others. So this needs to be, an issue that, until that's sorted out, the club can't really move forward in the way that we all want anyway. And I say, is all of this Kroenke's fault? I'm not sure it is. They're part of the problem, of course, and they're a big part of a lot of the problems. But in these certain issues here, I don't think they are, because they're not the people that's been dealing with these roles at the club, are they? They've employed people to do these jobs, and they haven't been doing a very good job of it. And yeah, you could maybe come back on the owners for that, possibly as well. Yeah, I agree. But we need to sometimes maybe look at the people that are actually to blame for making these decisions on the ground, if you like. Gary there says, I take it the 315k for Ozil will automatically be used to pick up new players. Yeah, well, that would be nice if it was. And maybe it will. We don't really know yet, do we? I suppose until the end of the season, when obviously those wages are off our wage bill, then we'll see what difference that makes. It's going to be a big summer anyway, I think, either way. Terry says, whose idea to let Ramsey leave for nothing? He was our best player at the time. Yeah, I mean, that was another one. But then again, you see, we don't know what went on. If he refused to sign the contract he was offered because he wanted more money elsewhere, or he didn't feel as though the contract was that rewarding him for the service that he'd given the club, maybe, then that's not really the club's fault. Should the club be held to ransom by every single player whose contracts needs negotiating? I'm not sure if that's the right way to do it. Yes, you want to try and keep your best players if you can. Of course you do, and you don't want to overpay for them. But sometimes, if a player's not willing to sign a contract because they get greedy, or they don't feel as though the contract's what they want, then they've got the right to leave now, haven't they? Because of the Bosman ruling and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's tough, isn't it? It's a tough one sometimes, and unfortunately, we've lost a few players for free that we shouldn't have done. But if they won't sign a contract, or they want a better deal that the club wasn't prepared to give them, you can't really blame them for that, can you? I suppose it is a tricky one though, because I think we would all prefer if we didn't have to lose players for nothing, especially good players that we liked and that were doing well for the club. But anyway, Gary says he agree with the Ramsey deal, thinking Arsenal had the right people in house to replace him. They fooled me. Yeah, I mean, I think maybe it was just Ramsey just wanted a better contract and they were going to offer him perhaps as well. And sometimes it happens, doesn't it? We've seen it before. Sanchez was the same, wasn't he? You know, he wanted a better contract and we were prepared to offer him. So we ended up obviously getting Mkhitaryan, and that worked out well, didn't it? As well. So you know, it's tough, isn't it? You know, I think from fans' point of view, we don't really understand the full ins and outs of how the transfers work, do we? You know, we see certain things happen, we see the result of it, and we think, well, that was a bad decision by the club, and that often is the case. But we don't know how they came to that conclusion. There was probably loads of decisions along the line that led the club to that point with a player like Aaron Ramsey, for example. I mean, Aaron Ramsey seemed happy with the club and wanted to stay, didn't he? So it seems, I don't know what went wrong there. Something obviously went wrong. I know he wasn't maybe getting as many starts under Unai Emery as he perhaps wanted to, and maybe that was part of it. Obviously, I would imagine that if he'd actually stayed and played under Mikel Arteta, then I think maybe he would have got more game time. You'd imagine he would, wouldn't you, in the midfield that we've currently got at the moment? You know, I'm sure he would have been playing every week, wouldn't he? So that was maybe a little bit of bad timing and maybe the wrong coach for Aaron Ramsey, because he didn't seem happy, did he, under Unai Emery, as a few players didn't. So, and again, that's not necessarily the Kroenke's fault, is it? You know, I'm not trying to defend them. I'm more playing devil's advocate with it, if I'm honest. But these are certain issues that sometimes are out of their hands, and everybody's throwing everything at them, and I don't think necessarily it's all their fault. I mean, I actually blame Raul for a lot of the stuff, to be honest, that we're in now, and not just him as well, people before him, you know, Gazidis as well, and a few others. So I don't think it's just the Kroenkes to blame. It's easy to throw everything at them now, but you know, if we look at the way the club's been run for a number of years, I would say I would go back to when David Dein left, and I know it's a similar time to when Stan Kroenke bought into the club, but that to me is when things have gone wrong, because David Dein kind of had the best interest of the club at heart and kind of knew what he was doing maybe, and made sure he had the right people doing the right jobs. I've had a couple of nice comments in here from Con Harris on 5. He says, keep up the good work. Thank you very much for your comments and your support. Much appreciated. And the Marble Halls as well. Keep up the good work. Yeah, well, thanks for the comments there. Really appreciate that. And thanks for tuning in and watching the show. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of, you know, a little bit of a maybe sort of off track a little bit with the takeover. Obviously, we don't know yet, do we, what Daniel Ek's intentions are going to be with the club should he take over. But the fact he's got these three legends working with him, to me, is a good sign, because, you know, that would be a good move probably for the club as we see it at the moment. But a lot of stuff's got to happen for that to go ahead, isn't it? And it's certainly not going to be something that's going to happen over the next you know, few weeks or few months. I would be very, very surprised if we've got new owners at the club before the start of next season. I'd be amazed, actually, if that was the case. Government legislation would take a lot longer than that. Maybe the end of next season, maybe, we'll see. But I say I don't think the Kroenkes are in any hurry to sell the club, unfortunately, and I think we may well be stuck with them for a bit longer yet. But I say they have, you know, we have spent money on players in the time they've been there, a lot of money on some players, too much, I think we would all agree, in some cases. But we'll see what happens. But, you know, I wouldn't necessarily say a takeover is the only thing that we need at the top. Those changes need to start dropping down as well. We need to get the right people in the right places. You know, we've lost a lot of our scouting as well, don't forget. So where we're going to find the new players from, you know, the new Thierry Henrys and people like that, if we get rid of a lot of our scouting network as well. So a lot of things that need to be sorted out as well as the owners, and let's hope that the process can happen at some stage soon. But in the meantime, let's just hope that, you know, I think there has been a lot of a change behind the scenes, hasn't there? The process, if you like, and maybe this is what's meant by the process. I don't think the process means Mikel Arteta and it means a squad of players. I think it's further up the line as well. I think there has been a lot of changes there, and I do think that's a process there that's maybe is what we need to look at. You know, is that working better now? And I do think I can see some changes on that side of it. I mean, I will come on to Mikel Arteta in a little while, because obviously stuff on the pitch is what I care about more than anything. We don't really understand the business side of it, do we? We're not involved in any of that. we can only see what's going on the pitch, the players and the manager. So I will come on to that because I think that's massively, for me, that's more important actually, because who the owners are in a way isn't necessarily what affects us directly, I don't think. Yes, you need to have a good owner, but equally, is that the only issue? I'm not sure. So I will talk about that in a minute as well. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of that for now in terms of the ownership and moving that forward. What's going to happen could be exciting, yes, definitely, but at the moment it's up in the air. We don't know too much about it, and I'm not sure the Cronkies are about to leave anytime soon either. So we just need to be careful we don't get too carried away with this, you know. And everyone's saying, oh, I'm going to go over to Spotify and buy Spotify Premium. Well, that would be great for Daniel Ek, I'm sure. I mean, it's not like he needs the money particularly, but I'm certainly going to hang fire on that. I remember when Alan Sugar took over at Tottenham and no one bought any Amstrad stuff, did they? Which was great. And but that had already happened. Let's wait until this happens first. If he buys the club, then brilliant. Let's all get Spotify Premium, fantastic. But until then, let's not give him any extra money because he might decide to invest that in a different club, and then we're going to look stupid, aren't we? So just hang fire on that for now, I would say, and see where that goes. Of course, Thierry Henry's been in the news today as well, hasn't he? For another reason, when he was one of the first two players to be inducted into the Premier League Hall of Fame. Fantastic achievement and fully deserved, of course. I mean, he is one of the greatest players that's ever played in English football, isn't he? Thierry Henry, there's absolutely no doubt about it. And him and Alan Shearer, of course, were today put into that category. That the first two, there's obviously going to be a lot more players going in it in the coming weeks and months. But it's great for Thierry Henry to be one of the first in there, and I say fully deserved as well. What a great player he was! Fantastic. I mean, who would ever have thought when he first joined? I remember his debut against Leicester when he came on as a substitute that day, first game of the season. And actually, for the first 6 months or so he played, he didn't look like he could hit a barn door, did he? He missed a lot of chances. But then it suddenly all clicked for him, didn't it? I remember it was a game against Derby, wasn't it, at the Emirates about the November time, late November it was. He scored both goals that day. We beat Derby 2-1, and they were the sort of goals that ended up becoming his trademark, actually, wasn't they? The way he finished them two goals, and it seemed to just all fall into place then, didn't it? And he, I say, went on to become one of the greatest players I've ever seen. And of course, the guy on the shirt behind me as well, and I'm sure he'll be in the Hall of Fame as well. Probably him and Bergkamp and Vieira as well. All three of the ones that's going to be maybe taken over the club will all be in that Hall of Fame. I'm sure. Tony there says maybe Kroenke should have brought in Arsenal legends. They maybe would not have been so far from fans. No, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes, do we? But I don't know. Maybe the legends didn't want to work with him. Looking at his record in American sport, for example, you can understand why. So, you know, we don't know. But yeah, he certainly would have helped, wouldn't it, to get people on side? And maybe that might happen anyway. Maybe in the end, maybe Henry, Bergkamp and Vieira might come in under Kroenke. Imagine that. That would certainly maybe make people look a bit differently on the Cronkies, maybe, if that was to happen. I'm not saying it will, but you never know. If they're not prepared to sell and Daniel Ek can't buy, and Henry, Bergkamp and Vieira are quite happy to invest in get themselves involved, who knows? There could be a deal to be done there, couldn't there? That could be interesting. We'll see what happens with that. But I say, Thierry Henry, massive congratulations for being inducted into the Hall of Fame. Obviously, it's fully deserved as well. And it's a shame Alan Shearer has to be in there because he clearly doesn't like Arsenal, does he? If you listen to his punditry. But obviously, you can't argue with his goal-scoring record, the Premier League's record goal scorer. And of course, it's quite ironic this week, isn't it, as well, when actually we play Newcastle, don't we, this weekend on Sunday? And, you know, obviously the two, you know, Newcastle's highest Premier League goal scorer and Arsenal's highest Premier League goal scorer as well, both inducted on the same day, just ahead of our meeting with them at the weekend. That's something else we'll talk about maybe a little bit later as well. I mean, in terms of other sort of player news, of course, Florin Balogun has signed his contract extension. It's not really been a surprise, has it? It's been talked about for a long time, and he's finally signed it until 2025. Let's hope that he can really push on and become the striker that we believe he can. He's made a little bit of impact in the Europa League, didn't he? A couple of goals in the group stage. Looked good, didn't he, when he came on? For some reason, he's not had enough minutes, has he? I don't know why Arteta's not been picking him. Is it because of the contract? Maybe now the contract's done. Are we going to see him in the squad a little bit more now, between now and the end of the season? Let's hope so, because I'm quite excited what the future might hold for him. I didn't really like his attitude necessarily, what I've seen, and I know that maybe his agent was maybe pushing this contract a little bit more than than he was. But even so, he signed it now. He clearly wanted to stay. And let's hope he can really push on now and develop into the player that we really want him to be. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Kevin Campbell, actually, who came through the youth system, of course, burst on the scene. Let's hope that Balogun can do the same and really push on and have a great career at Arsenal. And if it doesn't work out, of course, now the good news is he's on a contract, so we'll be able to get good money for him should he leave in the next 2 or 3 years if it hasn't worked out. But let's hope it does, because he's one of our own, if you like. He's come through our system, and we do love those players to do well, don't we? Certainly people of my era, maybe in particular, we've always loved the youth players coming in. I've seen Arsenal have a lot of success with players that's come through our academy system. So hopefully he could be another one that can go on and win trophies with the club as well, alongside some of these other great young players that are in the team at the moment. Talking of which, Emil Smith-Rowe as well, apparently he's in discussions for a new contract. He's into the last 2 years as well, so he's coming up to the right time for him, isn't it? So let's hope that can be sorted out. I'm sure it will. He's playing regularly now, isn't he? And he seems happy at the club. I'm sure he doesn't want to leave. So let's hope we can get that contract done, and we can get him tied into a long-term deal as well. Saka's already in a long-term deal, isn't he? I think he signed a new contract last summer, didn't he? So we've got these three now. 3 young players, three attacking players that hopefully can take the club forward in a exciting direction. But we'll see. It's great that Balogun signed. Let's hope ESR can sign as well, and we can then start to build maybe a younger team that understands Arsenal as well. Come through the academy, get a few more of these young players involved. Aziz as well. Miguel Aziz looks like a decent player. I'd like to see him get a few more minutes as well between now and the end of the season. But we'll see what happens there. Gary says legends probably should be a part of the team long before Kroenke took over. No, I agree. Is that the issue? Arsenal is always a day late. Well, yeah, we do seem to be. But, I guess we can't go back over the last 2 or 3 disappointing years, can we? We've just got to try to move forward now, and hopefully move forward in a more positive way. On the pitch and off the pitch as well, because I do think that's really important, isn't it? Tony there says, I think we need to get out 6 players, bring in 4 or 5 top players. Yeah, we probably need a few more than 4 or 5 top players, if I'm totally honest. Actually, I think we need a new right back, because it looks like Bellerin's going. Yes, we've got Cedric, but we need somebody else. We need a backup left back, as we've seen without Kieran Tierney. We're struggling there, aren't we? I think maybe another centre back as well. If David Luiz doesn't sign another contract, then I think we maybe need another experienced central defender to come in as well. So that's another player there. So that's 3. In midfield is the biggest issue, isn't it? I think we need 2 or 3 in there, don't we? I would quite like the guy from Brighton, Basuma. He would be a good player, I think, as well. So we need 1 or 2 others in that area as well, don't we? And maybe another striker as well, especially if Lacazette doesn't re-sign. We need to get Aubameyang either firing again or get him out as well and replace him. So a lot of work to be done in the team and in the squad, definitely. Not only it's not going to take one window, is it, to get all those players in and out? It will probably take a little bit longer than that, but we'll see what happens there. Terry says, if Arteta wins the cup and the Kroenkes do sell, is Arteta in or out, or will the 3 of them plus Arteta run the team? Well, it'd be interesting to see. I mean, I'm pretty sure if we do win the Europa League, Arteta will stay, and I think that would be right as well. If he's got us into the Champions League, he's achieved the aim of the club, isn't it, which is to get back into that competition. So yes, the football hasn't been great, and if we do win the Europa League and he does stay, he's got to make massive improvements, hasn't he? And yes, that's partly to do with the recruitment again, getting the right players in, but also he's got to do better himself. He's made a lot of mistakes, and that needs to improve. And is he able to do that? Time will tell. But if we don't win the Europa League, then I don't think he's the right man to take the club forward. I think we need a more experienced manager. There's a lot of issues at the club, as we know, and I think we need a more experienced manager to take that on and be able to get more out of the job, really. That a lot more than what Arteta's managed to do, unfortunately. But we'll see. We're still in the Europa League. We will talk about it in a minute as well, the semi-final. So yeah, let's hope that that can work. Terry says, yeah, he totally agrees with Tony about the players that we need out and in, which is good. Gary says, what What about 9 players? Bellerin, Chambers, Maitland-Niles, Guendouzi, Torreira, Willock, Nelson, and Nketiah, maybe Lacazette. Is that 9? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, there's 9 there. Yeah, there you go. So that they all them players may well be leaving, mightn't they, this summer? Plus maybe a few more as well. That would bring in some money for some of them, I'm sure, and that might help fund some of the new signings that we need as well. But we'll see what happens. Tony says there, do we trust Arteta to get the players we need? Well, it's not just going to be Arteta, is it? I think Edu plays a big part in that, doesn't he? So far, the signs are reasonably good. I think Partey, he's been underwhelming so far because of injuries, but I think he's a good signing. Gabriel's has been a decent signing as well. So I don't know. It's more not necessarily about Arteta getting in the right players. It's more about, can he coach them properly? Can he coach the team? Can he coach the team properly around them? That's my issue with him. That's my concern, as opposed to him getting the right players in. We've got Thomas Partey, and he hasn't got the best out of him. He hasn't got the best out of Aubameyang, who, you know, Golden Boot winner 2 years ago. He was 1 goal off Golden Boot winner last season as well. So, you know, he's not getting the best out of the good players that we've got, all of them. So that's an issue as well, isn't it? Terry says there, bring in the 3 legends. Do you think egos may become a problem? Well, I don't know. I think that those 3 obviously worked together before, didn't they, at the club as players? And I'm assuming there wasn't too many issues. Yeah, I mean, it's competitive, isn't it? And good players tend to have that competitive edge. And, you know, I'm guessing they didn't always see eye to eye about everything, but they obviously managed to work together well, didn't they? So I'm not really sure that the egos would necessarily be a problem with those 3, because they did work together before. Maybe certain other players who maybe haven't worked together previously could be an issue. I don't think it would be with those 3, because, you know, they know each other really well. And I don't think an ego would be a problem really with them, would it? I don't think Bergkamp's got an ego, has he? I think he's not really like that, is he? And I don't really think Vieira and Henry have either, if we're totally honest. And I say the 3 of them together, I think would be well, I mean, what more could you want? 3 of the, as I said at the beginning, the 3 of the greatest players that's ever played for the club. I mean, what more could you want? Absolutely fantastic it would be if they were involved again all together. Gary says Arsenal need an experienced manager or better support, board recruiting, director of football, above and below, assistant manager, players. No, I do agree. I think the structure has not been quite right around Arteta, and it hasn't helped him. I totally agree with that. But I don't, or he hasn't shown me yet, and I'm not convinced that he's the right man tactically, or the right man at dealing with. We talked about ego just a minute ago. Some of the egos in the team at the moment and in the squad, I don't think he's actually dealt with that too well, has he? Some of the issues he's had with certain players, and a lot of that's down to his inexperience, I'm sure. And I've got no doubt, and I've said this on this channel a lot actually, I've got no doubt that in time Arteta will become a very good manager. I think he's a decent coach, and I think he will in time become a good manager. I just don't know whether or not a club like Arsenal, at the situation that we're in, we can give him that time, because it might take him 4, 5, 10 years to get that experience and become the manager that he maybe will be able to become in the future. I'm just thinking that maybe he's not the right man for me at this moment in time for what the club needs right now. And maybe there's something that we'll need to look at. But I say, if we win the Europa League, I would certainly be saying yes. Let's give him at least give him this summer transfer window to start next season and see how we are. If we get some better players in, hopefully that'll improve the results anyway, and we can maybe start to progress. But Arteta's got a lot of work to do to convince a lot of fans, not just me, and that's just to do with the performances on the pitch. And that's the thing that really worries me and concerns me, is every game that we play, that's what I'm worried about. All the other stuff behind the scenes, yes, we worry about that in between when there's no games, but you know, on a Saturday or a Sunday, whenever we're playing, a midweek, wherever we're playing, it's what we do on the pitch. That's what we're all concerned about. That's why we love Arsenal. We love Arsenal because of what we've seen on the pitch over the years, the players on the pitch, the results, the games that we've seen. So these are the things for me that's really important to me. And you know, I know a lot of the focus was on the protest on Friday, but we then had a game on Friday night, and it was that bothered me more than the owners or anything else. Watching that performance of this team on the pitch and being 10th, 11th in the league, you know, which we could be with teams with games in hand and stuff. You know, it's not good enough, is it? You know, 5 home games in a row without a win, only 2 goals scored in those 5 games, load of problems on the pitch, and to me, that's what hurts me more, because that's what we're getting week in, week out. That's what it's about, isn't it? It's all about the results on the pitch. And yes, that comes from above, doesn't it? And it all filters down eventually, and that's maybe what's happened over the years. It slowly started filtering down. Wenger maybe was able to still produce half decent results most of the time. And since he's gone, it started to crumble. And you can see that it's not just because of that, it is above, it's like you've got to have the foundations right, I suppose, haven't you? And we haven't had that. And unfortunately, Arteta's struggled with that as well. Shane says, if we have a brilliant transfer window and bring in quality players, I still think Arteta will be gone by Christmas. I don't see anything in his process. He baffles me. No, he does. And I say he's not done enough, has he? But if we do win the league, we do have more fun. He's got no excuses, then, has he? If we do bring in 3 or 4 or 5 top quality players, clear out a lot of the deadwood out of the squad, he's then got no excuse. And if we aren't performing by Christmas, if we're still in a similar situation in the league, we're still losing games in the way that we're losing them, then I don't think he can't have any excuses, can he? So, we'll have to see what happens. But if we don't get through the semi-final, which I'm going to come on to in a minute, then I don't think he will last beyond the end of the season anyway. And I'm not sure if he should. Tony says he agrees with Shane. Yeah, I do as well. And Terry says, I think a lot of our players have got away with murder with no fans in the stadium. Well, no, I do. And I think Arteta's maybe got away with murder as well, because I don't think the fans in the stadium would have put up with the negative tactics, the sideways, backwards, constant passing all the time, and the slow play and all this kind of stuff. And I think with fans in the stadium, the atmosphere would have turned a long time ago. And would Arteta have survived Christmas with all those home defeats we had in November and December? We were 15th in the Premier League. We didn't look like things were going to change particularly. They haven't really changed that much, have they? We look at where we are in the league and the results, but it improved slightly, obviously, with the run that we had just after Christmas in the New Year. But I don't think he would have survived had there been fans in the stadium. I just don't think he would have survived in November or December. I think by Christmas he would have been gone. So, I think everybody's got away with murder with no fans. And I think another thing I wanted to touch on is VAR as well. And that's kind of got away with murder. And the referees have got away with murder because there isn't that backlash from the fans in the stadium. And that makes a massive difference. I think we've realised in this last week that fans do have a say and fans are important, but they're more important when they're in the stadium because they can actually have an influence on the game. They influence referees. They can have an influence on the team negatively and positively and stuff like that. So, I think everybody's got away with murder this last year or so with no fans in, and it's going to be interesting to see if we can get full stadiums again next season, which would be great, wouldn't it? Let's see what difference it actually makes to everything, and see who gets away with things then, and whether we've still got Arteta in charge. I'm sure he wouldn't have been. I'm convinced he wouldn't have been if there'd been fans in the stadium at the start of this season all the way through. I'm convinced he wouldn't have survived all that. But we'll see what happens, obviously, when fans are back and what difference it makes, assuming he's still there, of course, at the start of next season. I did want to touch on that VAR, actually. That was next on my list because what I found was yesterday, I don't know whether or not any of you guys, I know, I think Terry was in the chat yesterday when I did a watch along at the Arsenal women's game. And I've been doing a few of them this season, and I've been into women's football for quite a long time anyway. And I've been supporting the Arsenal women's team for the last couple of years. And even more so, I've been noticing this season in particular, watching the Arsenal women, how much more enjoyable the games are because you don't have the VAR going on. So when there's a goal scored, it's a goal because it's given straight away, and you can celebrate a goal and you know that you've scored. You haven't got to think, well, do we have to wait for 5 minutes for a VAR check? If a penalty is given, a penalty is given, and that's it. And if an offside is given, an offside is given, and that's it. If it's not given as offside, it isn't. And that's obviously how football used to be a couple of years ago, and that's how it should be for me. And I've enjoyed the women's game a lot more this season because of all of that. Now, I don't know whether or not they're thinking of bringing VAR into the women's game. I don't see how they can because they generally don't play in the Premier League stadiums, do they? They play in the smaller grounds. And I'm hoping that they don't. And I'm hoping that ultimately VAR, they bin it off. I mean, this weekend, again, some absolutely crazy decisions, wasn't there? And it seems to be all that we're talking about. But it's not even the decisions necessarily. I mean, the red card at the West Ham Chelsea game, I mean, that was the most ridiculous red card I think I've ever seen, to be perfectly honest, especially when later on in the game, a very similar incident, didn't lead to a red card, did it? So it's that inconsistency. But for me, the offsides is the big issue, isn't it? With the lines on the pitch, and when you're offside because of an elbow or because of a hand, where you can't score with that part of your body. I don't believe that's what it's worked. It hasn't worked as improving the game. It certainly hasn't. It's made it go the other way. And it's taken out the whole point of live sport for me is the excitement of great things that happen, whether it's a great goal, a great piece of skill, or whatever it is, whatever sport you're watching live, a great moment. If you remember the Olympics, the London Olympics in 2012, some great moments that happen there live, and that's what live sport for me is all about, and that's what live football's always been about for me. Those moments that get you off your seat, you see a great goal and instantly you just want to cheer and shout, and that's been taken away now. And they've got away with it, as we said before, because of no fans in the ground. Because I don't think, with all that's gone on with the offsides and that this season in particular, and some of these other decisions, I don't think with fans in the stadium they would have been allowed to have got away with that, just because of the pressure that it would have been from the crowd. And I don't know, it needs to change, doesn't it? And people say it's not VAR, it's the rules. And yes, it is the rules as well. But when you look at, if you look at those two incidents in the West Ham Chelsea game, the guy that got sent off and the one that didn't, it's the same rules, isn't it, in place? You look at the Fulham game against Arsenal and the Everton game against Arsenal, the penalties in both games, the incidents are exactly the same, and yet one VAR came up with one decision and one came up with another decision. So it's still referees making different interpretations of incidents. It's not really the rules, is it always? It's to do with the referees, and that's the biggest problem. And I think before we had VAR, for me, you had a referee, you had two linesmen, right? Or two assistants, sorry, they're not linesmen anymore, are they? Two assistant referees and a referee. And between them, they would get decisions right mostly, and they would get some wrong. But that was all it was. Now you've got two in VAR, you've got all these other people making decisions. And it's like one says one thing and someone else disagrees. And then who's right? Because a lot of the time it isn't to do with the laws of the game, it's to do with the interpretation of the laws, isn't it? So some of these penalties and stuff like that. So it's like too many cooks, isn't it? That's what we've come down to. And in fact, you need less referees, then you've only got one decision. If the referee, to me, I can accept a decision by the referee even if it's wrong. Yes, you get upset and you get angry and you shout and scream at them and call them names and chant at them and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, I can accept that because they've made a genuine mistake a lot of the time. And the game's fast moving and it's easy for them to sometimes get things wrong. And you get some go for you and you get some going against you, and you can think, okay, fair enough. And I didn't really mind that too much. It gave us something to talk about as well, didn't it, on the way home from a game, especially in recent years when you can see the stuff on your phone, someone on, I can remember there was one that sticks in my mind, West Brom away a couple of years ago, on New Year's Eve the game was. We drew 1-1, and it was a penalty that West Brom got in the last minute. We were 1-0 up, and I think it was might have been Callum Chambers who conceded the penalty. Very, very soft. I mean, we was up the other end of the pitch to where the penalty was, and it looked very soft. And anyway, West Brom scored, and it was a 1-1 draw. And when we were coming out of the ground, you're just walking back to, coming out of the away end, a lot of people had, was on their phone with Sky. They had, they had sort of Sky coverage on their phone and stuff like that. And they were looking at the replays of it, and we're all looking at it on people's phones thinking, well, that was a terrible decision, but in a way, we was upset and annoyed and frustrated, of course, but it was great to, something to talk about, isn't it, on the way home? So we spent 3 hours driving home from that game, me and my son, and we were talking about how hard done by we were, and that it was never a penalty, and that's fine. But now you've got the VAR, and you've got all these different angles of things. They can't possibly get it wrong, or they shouldn't get it wrong, and yet they do, and there's no excuse for that. And it's made it worse. There's too many people who are involved in the decision making now. You just need let the referee on the pitch referee the game, and that's it. Just let him get on with it. And if he gets things wrong, he gets things wrong. And if the same referee makes too many mistakes too often, send them away for more training, fine them, or do something, punish the referee. That's fine. Do it like that. Get rid of VAR because it hasn't helped. It hasn't improved the game. And yes, we've maybe suffered a little bit more than some clubs. You look at the inconsistencies over the last two games that we've had. I say that the Fulham penalty and our penalty against Everton, one was given, one wasn't given, exactly the same incident. So, and I say for me, watching the women's game, it's just made me realise how much I miss that football, that type of football with no VAR. And please, if anybody who's in charge of any of this is listening to the fans, you know, all the fans have come together to say how much they're against the club owners, right? Great. Now all fans need to come together and get rid of VAR out of the Premier League. Every single fan of every single club. Nobody likes it. Why can't fans join together? All fans of all clubs in the Premier League, like we have done with the owners. You know, there's been at the Arsenal protest there with Chelsea fans, Liverpool fans, Man United fans. Brilliant. You know, and there was Arsenal fans at some of the other protests. So why don't we all come together as football fans and say, do you know what? We don't want this. We do not want this as part of our game. And I think if we did that, there was a big enough voice, I'm sure they would have to get rid of it, because I don't even want it improved. I don't want it changed. I just want it gone. And I think most football fans deep down want it gone, you know, because it's ruining the game. It's taken all the emotion out of it, and it's taken away a lot of our enjoyment as well. So I think we all need to come together now. And, you know, it seems at the moment, everyone's saying how much power fans have got. Let's put that to practice and try and get rid of something really important that's going to help everybody. You know, not just help the top 6 clubs. This is going to help everybody if we've got no VAR. It's going to bring the love and enjoyment back to football, which I've lost quite a lot because of this, definitely. Terry's made a couple of comments there. He says, great show yesterday. It's great to watch the women. No, it is exactly. Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I love watching the women. I say this is one of the main reasons at the moment as well. And Terry says, it's nice to see a goal scored and the girls celebrate straight away. No waiting 2 minutes for it to be given. Exactly. And that's the point, isn't it? Not just the players. Yes, it's great for the players to be able to celebrate, but also for the fans. You know, it's a goal. It's been given. It's a goal. They're not going to change their mind. And that's what you want. You don't, you know, even if a referee's wrong, the last thing you want is them to change their mind. Just get on with it. If they're wrong, they're wrong. You know, the next one might go your way. And that's what I want. Just bring that back. So let's all get together as fans, right? Fans of every single club in the Premier League need to pull together on this one. You know, whether now's the right time with everything else, I'm not sure. But certainly before the start of next season, we've got to get rid of VAR. We've got to do everything we can to get it out of the game, because it's poisonous and it's ruined the game. And to me, that's killed my enjoyment a lot more than any of these owners have. That's what's on a weekly basis. This is, isn't it? You know, twice, three or four times a week, different games. You're looking at it, and it's just taking everything away from the game that we love. So it's got to go, and we're the ones who've maybe got the power to do it as fans. So we need to get together and come together maybe between now and the start of next season and do what we can as much as we can to make them see sense and get rid of it, because it's just ruining everything for me. Absolutely ruining it. So that's what I would like to see happen as well. So that's my little rant about VAR, but we can maybe change it. We need to come together and do this. So that I'm going to try and set something up over the next few weeks to try and get something in place, because we've seen how powerful it is when fans come together. And let's come together for something else that's going to benefit the sport in general and benefit everybody. So that's that. Just want to quickly touch on our loan players as well, actually, because we've got 2 in the Premier League at the moment that are doing quite well. Joe Willock's been in the news, hasn't he? Keeps scoring for Newcastle. I think that's 3 games in a row. He's got them points, kept them up now, by all accounts. I know we're playing him at the weekend. He can't play, but he's doing really well. I know he's coming off the bench. He's not getting a regular game for him. Let's not get excited and say that, you know, we should have him back. Yes, we're lacking goals in midfield, but he's had plenty of chances now in midfield and hasn't scored for us. Sometimes playing for a different club under a different manager with different styles, different players around can bring the best out of a player. Maybe that's what's happening with Joe Willock. Maybe you've got a little bit more freedom at Newcastle and it's working for him. I'm pleased for him, really pleased for him, because he's a nice lad. He's another one who's come for our academy. I think we all want him to do well, and it's working out for him, and that's brilliant. I think if we can sell him in the summer to Newcastle, that's a great deal. Get that done, be good for his career, and we can get some money in, which might help us as well. But yeah, I'm chuffed for Joe Willock. Really good. And I say I still don't think he's what we need, and maybe he's what Newcastle need. It makes sense, perhaps, to do that deal if we can in the summer. Tony says a good time to cash in on Willock. Exactly, yeah, cash on him while he's playing well. But the other one who's maybe gone off the radar a little bit because he's not scoring goals is Ainsley Maitland-Niles at West Brom. Now you can see that the results that they've had, it might be a little bit too late for them, but he made a massive difference for them, playing in midfield as well, actually, which he wanted to play in midfield for us and maybe didn't get the chance. Now with him, it's slightly different. Our midfield is a massive problem area, as I mentioned before. Ainsley Maitland-Niles has proved he can do a job in the Premier League. Again, it could be systems, it could be the manager and stuff like that has helped him bring in the best out of him. But he's shown that he can do a job in midfield that we maybe lack. Joe Willock's had opportunities now in midfield and hasn't really worked. Ainsley hasn't really. He's played mainly at fullback, hasn't he? Left back, he's played left wing back, he's played right back. He's even played maybe on the right side of midfield, but not in the centre midfield. Maybe 1 or 2 games, and that's it. He's not really had an opportunity there. I personally would like to see him come back to Arsenal next season, get an opportunity in the centre midfield. You know, you can maybe see him actually with Thomas Partey, his physical presence, Ainsley's energy, and his ability as well. Those two could actually be a really good partnership, you know, and it could save us a lot of money having to buy somebody like Basuma. I'm not saying we shouldn't try to get Basuma. You need as many options as you can, but I would sell Willock to Newcastle because I think that's a good fit for him, and I would bring Ainsley back and give him a chance in midfield next season, because I feel as though that's one area that we're lacking, and that's one position that I would like to see him given an opportunity in at least, and we'll see how that was to work out. Gary says, yes, sell them all. I don't know about sell them all. Arteta doesn't plan to use them. Well, that's true. He didn't seem to, but a different manager coach probably would. Yeah, well, yeah, you can see when a player's given maybe a bit more responsibility in a team and allowed to play and express themselves, how they come out of themselves. And that's what's happened with Joe Willock. And I do think it's happened with Ainsley as well. But I would be tempted to keep Ainsley and bring him back and get him playing in midfield. That would be my personal choice if I was have anything to do with it. I mean, I don't know what you guys think about Ainsley in midfield. For us, I just feel as though we've got a massive gap in that particular what his skill set is, which I say is energy. He's got skill as well. He can get up and down the pitch, and I think that's one area in midfield that we've really lacking. You look at Danny Ceballos, who's played there, not really done enough for me. You look at Granit Xhaka. I like Granit Xhaka, and I think he does a good job, but he maybe hasn't got the mobility that Ainsley's got. And I actually think that would be him and Partey. I think would be a great partnership there. And Terry agrees as well. There, Terry in the chat says Partey and Niles sounds good to me. It's worth a try. Exactly, I do think it is, and I think that maybe Ainsley probably wouldn't have got a chance in midfield for us if he hadn't gone out on loan, because I don't think Arteta trusted him. But I think we've all seen. I mean, I've watched quite a bit of West Brom because Ainsley's been playing. Actually, for that reason, I wanted to see how he was doing, and I think he's looked good in their midfield. And they're a struggling team. And yes, the way his tactics are slightly different, obviously, but he's looked good for. He's probably, for me, I think he's done better in his overall performances for West Brom than Willock's done for Newcastle. Willock's been in the headlines because he's got goals, but he's been on the bench quite a lot. He's coming on, getting goals. I know Steve Bruce likes to set up more defensively, brings on an attacking midfield player later in the game, and it's worked because he's getting goals. But for me, Ainsley's been consistent all the way through at West Brom, playing virtually every game, hasn't he? I think he's played in centre midfield. So yeah, I would definitely, that would be my choice out of those two this summer. Tony says, yeah, try Ainsley in midfield. If it don't work, then move him on next year. Yeah, I mean, I think he'd be a great player to have in the squad midfield. And I say, for some reason, I didn't use him there, did he? It'd be interesting to see what does happen with that now going forward, actually. But yeah, so for me, sell Willock to Newcastle, bring Ainsley back, stick him in midfield and see how that works out. Shane says there's Saliba, Guendouzi and Mavropanos. Yep, they're free, also out on loan. Apparently, Torreira, Guendouzi, Willock, Mavropanos, Ainsley, get rid. Arteta won't start any of them. See, I again see Guendouzi's an interest. Torreira, I don't think settled in London, has he? So I think Torreira we should sell. Potentially, he's a very good player. We saw what he was capable of in his first season, but it hasn't really worked out. So yeah, Torreira for me, I would sell. Mavropanos is an interesting one. He's been playing really well on loan, and he looked good for us, didn't he, at times? I think his fitness was an issue, but I'll be tempted to maybe bring him back as well, because I do think we need, certainly if David Luiz doesn't stay, we need another centre-back. Yes, Saliba's another one as well. He's impressing on loan again, so we've got those two to look at. I would maybe look at keeping one of them and selling one of them. We'd have to have a look and see what happens when they come back. Guendouzi is perhaps the biggest split, really, because I can see his potential as a player, and again, he's someone in midfield with a lot of energy that we've lacked this season, actually, and he would give us a bit more variety. But again, it's his attitude, isn't it? I'm not quite sure whether he's the right fit for us. So we'd have to see if he comes back with a better attitude. Maybe he might be worth keeping as well. Personally, I don't think we could keep Guendouzi and Ainsley in the set, because it'd be a similar kind of role they would have in the team, wouldn't they, alongside Thomas Partey? And I don't think we could keep both of them. And if we only could keep one, I would obviously keep Ainsley. One, because he's an Arsenal boy, come through our academy, and also as well because I just think he's more steady, isn't he? I think Guendouzi, you know what he's like. He could always go off on one at any time. So that's probably what I would do. But yeah, I think it's going to come down to Mavropanos or Saliba, possibly, isn't it? For the centre back to keep one and sell one. We'll probably end up keeping Saliba, I would imagine. We've invested a lot more money in him and stuff like that. So I think we'll probably end up keeping him and selling Mavropanos. But Mavropanos to me is a decent defender actually, and could be a good player for us. So I think either of those two that we sell, I think we may end up regretting it at some stage. But anyway, we can't keep them all because you just can't, can you? You know, you can't have too many players because half of them won't play enough, and then they might as well be out on loan or sell them and get some money in for them, mightn't you? So, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens with some of those other ones as well. I mean, I was mainly looking at Willock and Ainsley because they're both obviously playing in the Premier League, playing regularly in the Premier League, whereas the others are obviously out on loan in different leagues. It's difficult to judge, isn't it? Because you don't know what that competition's always like, where they're playing. You know, I mean, Guendouzi's in the German league, which is a decent league, I suppose. But anyway, Tony says there, Saliba should start next year. We need to sell Guendouzi. Yeah, I would say probably, yeah, unless he changes his ways. Yeah, so I just said that, yeah. He's got 1 year after this season. Yeah, I'd say maybe. I don't think we'll keep him and Ainsley. So, yeah, I would be tempted more to keep Ainsley. And Terry says, yeah, with Niles, at least he can play in different positions. Well, that's true as well. Yeah, he's very versatile, isn't he? And actually, funny enough, you know, with our need for a left back at the moment, he obviously played there before as well. He could have maybe done a good job for us there at the moment. But anyway, that's again an option, isn't it, going forward if necessary as well. So yeah, he is a versatile player. Shane says, Odegaard, do you think we can get him on a long-term contract? Well, it'd be nice if we did, because I think he's a really good player, isn't he? He looks as though he's adapted really quickly to Arsenal, to English football. And yeah, unfortunately, he's been injured, hasn't he? But yeah, I hope we can do a deal for him. I really do. But a lot of it depends on, obviously, we know what's happening at Real Madrid with their owner, don't we? So who knows what's going to happen with all of that. But if we can get that deal done, it'd be great, wouldn't it? Because he'd be a great player for us, I think. He already proved himself this season. So yeah, it's a no-brainer to try and keep him if we can. But who knows? I would send Ceballos back and do all we can to get Odegaard, even if it's a season-long loan as a starting point, maybe, and see. But yeah, I'd love us to get Odegaard on a long-term deal, because I think he's been a brilliant player. And he's added something extra to the team as well, hasn't he, when he's played? In fact, he's been missing the last few games, and you can see the difference in the chances that we're creating, the goals that we've scored and stuff like that. So, yeah, Odegaard for me is a definite yes. If we can do it, let's hope we can, because that would be, with a few other players around him, could be really exciting, couldn't it? But we'll see what happens with that. Just before I finish, I do want to talk about European football, obviously. A big semi-final this week. Another Europa League semi-final, the third one in the last 4 years, actually. You know, we haven't had many European semi-finals before that. I did a video on it today, actually, looking at all the previous 9 that we've had. So we've only had 9, and I say obviously 3 in the last few years. So we hadn't had enough before. Maybe the Europa League suits us quite well, but it's going to be a big game, isn't it? Unai Emery coming, or obviously the first game's away, but he'll be coming back to the Emirates. I'm sure he's going to be desperate to get a result, isn't he? I'm sure I know he's not been critical of the club, has he, since he's left, which is fair play to him for that. Massive credit to him. But I'm sure deep down inside he's going to want to win this game, isn't he, to maybe prove to Arsenal that they were wrong to get rid of him as quickly as they did. When you bear in mind they've stuck with Arteta, whose results have been worse. And I'm sure he'll be aware of that as well, won't he, Unai Emery? And he's probably thinking to himself, he probably didn't understand what's gone on. I don't think he was the right man for the club either, if I'm totally honest. But looking at results, his results were better than Arteta's, wasn't they? And he got out the door. So going to be interesting couple of games, isn't it? I do feel as though it's almost an era-defining tie, this, for Arsenal. I think if we win, we're in the final, then we've got a great chance of being in Champions League next year, which could be so vital for the club in terms of finances. If we get knocked out and we lose and we're out, again, I feel that's massively negative for the club in terms of finances for next season, especially if we're not in Europe at all. Now, there is talk now, of course, that 7th place in the Premier League may get you into that European Conference League, which I don't think anybody really wants to be in. But again, it's more money coming into the club, isn't it? And we could always play the kids in that competition, couldn't we, if we wanted to, still take the money for it. So I don't think we're going to finish 7th in the Premier League, if I'm honest. I think we're too far behind with not enough games left. And if we do get through the semi-final, I'm assuming lots of changes will be made in the Premier League anyway, and we'll drop points. So I'm not too bothered about that, but it's just interesting that 7th place could be enough to get into Europe, maybe even lower possibly, depending on who, if an English team wins the Europa League that isn't Arsenal, Manchester United, obviously, and if an English team wins the Champions League and they're both in the top 4, with the FA Cup as well, look like it's going to be a team in the top 4. Man City have won the League Cup, they're in the top 4. It could actually knock the Europa League places down, and maybe 7th or 8th could get you in the Europa League. If that was the case, I'd like to see us maybe try and go for that. Difficult job now. We're making it hard for ourselves every week, but just another way, it may not all be over if we do get knocked out this week of the Europa League or next week. It may not all be over for European football. There may still be a chance to get in there, which I do feel is important. And actually, the Europa League, I don't mind it. I've got used to it now the last 4 years. We've done well, as I say, 3 semi-finals in that time. We maybe should have done better last season as well. That Olympiacos game at the Emirates, if you remember, when we should have got through. And we could have maybe gone on to another semi-final or final last year as well. So it's been a good competition for us. I've enjoyed it. It's we're having good runs in Europe, aren't we? Which is nice for us as a fan, because I say we haven't had that many, have we, over the years? So I want us to be in Europe next season, one way or the other. Hopefully in the Champions League, fingers crossed. If not, the Europa League would do. The conference, well, not that bothered about that, if I'm honest. But I say an opportunity to maybe blood some of these younger players and use it as a stepping stone maybe, and to get experience to some of these players. So, it might not necessarily be a bad thing on that way, if we want to look at it like that. Just finally, I want to finish on the semi-final. Obviously, I will be doing a full preview video of that in the next couple of days. I'll get that out. Just looking at some of the team news that I've heard today, David Luiz might be back, actually. He's been in full training since the end of last week, so he may well be in contention. If he's fit, I would play him. I think it's vital that we've got that experience at the back. I think that's one thing that we've lacked, actually, in recent weeks. We've had Holding and Gabriel, we've had Holding and Mari, and we haven't had that experienced centre-back. And I feel at times that's cost us. So it'd be great if David Luiz is fit. If he is, I would play him alongside Gabriel, because I do think that's maybe the best partnership that we've had this season. So that's good news if he's fit. We're unsure about Aubameyang and Lacazette at this moment. Aubameyang's not trained still since his illness, and Lacazette, as we know, his hamstring injury, he's not been in training either. So it's looking like maybe both of them might be missing, and that'd be a big blow, wouldn't it, if they are. Balogun, now he signed his contract, can he throw him in there? Possibly. He certainly might be a better option than Nketiah, who I don't think is good enough. I said it on a show yesterday. I think, for me, Nketiah is the new Francis Jeffers, the fox in the box, if you like, but not quite good enough for Arsenal. I'd like to see him succeed. I just don't think he's good enough. And for a game like this, I wouldn't play him. Maybe Martinelli would be better bet through the middle. He did come on at the weekend on Friday, didn't he, and played through the middle a bit towards the end. He didn't get opportunity to get in the game much, but he would be a better option for me than Nketiah if Aubameyang and Lacazette both don't make it, which is looking like they won't, actually. But we'll see. Gary's been in the chat there. He says, things you never thought you would hear from me is I've gotten used to Europa. Well, I kind of got used to it now. And let's be honest, right? In the Champions League, the last probably, 4, 5, 6 years that we played in it, we didn't compete, did we? We got through the group stage easily enough, as you'd expect. But as soon as we got anybody in the knockout stage that were half decent, we got knocked out, didn't we? So I didn't enjoy that. I wasn't enjoying getting knocked out every year that early. At least in the Europa League, we've been getting decent runs going, and say a semi-final, a final, and now another semi-final, and that's in 4 seasons. That's not bad, is it? I quite enjoy that. I just enjoy winning games of football and staying in cup competitions, So, yeah, I've enjoyed the Europa League, actually, on that basis, And I do feel that when you get to the knockout stage, it's actually the quality isn't much different, is it, to the group stage of the Champions League, say, for example. In fact, it's probably better than that, isn't it? Because you've got a lot of the Champions League dropouts have dropped in. And look at some of the teams that are in it now. The teams that are left. Villarreal have got a Champions League pedigree. Obviously, we have Manchester United. I mean, they're one of the biggest clubs in Europe, aren't they? And Roma as well. Again, these are all clubs with Champions League history, aren't they? Played regularly in the Champions League, so it's a decent competition. I don't mind it, actually. Yes, we want to be in the Champions League, of course we do, for the money, the prestige, and Arsenal should be in it. But I have enjoyed the Europa League, but that's because we do better in it, I suppose. And that's probably the reason. In the same reason, I probably enjoy the FA Cup more than the Premier League in the last few years, because we do better in the FA Cup generally, don't we? We've got a chance of winning it. We haven't got a chance of winning the Premier League, but doesn't mean I want us to leave, by the way, and go into some Super League. I'm happy being in the Premier League. I just, we're not going to win it, are we? But in the FA Cup, for example, even the League Cup, I'd like to see us maybe put more effort into that in future, because Man City can't keep winning it, can they? Surely. Tony says Balogun. Yeah, possibly. I still think maybe Martinelli for me, and says, yeah, Balogun should be in front of him. He should, and maybe he will now. He signed a contract. Maybe that's what was holding him back. There's no excuse now, is there? So we'll see what happens with that. I would personally go Martinelli if Aubameyang and Lacazette aren't fit, which I'd be surprised if they haven't started training yet, and the game's on Thursday. They're not going to be ready to play, are they? So I think we're looking at Nketiah, Martinelli, or Balogun is the choice. Martinelli for me through the middle. I wouldn't say he's necessarily his best position. I think on the left he's better, but with the players we've got out, he's the best that we've got. I think ready to come in and do that job in a game like that. I don't think Balogun's played enough games at the top level to throw him into a semi-final. I'm just not sure if this is the right time. I'd have him on the bench, definitely, to bring him on if necessary, but not to start him. But yeah, he definitely should be in front of Nketiah. I totally agree with that. Nketiah's had plenty of chances and not managed to do it. A bit like Willock, actually. I could see Nketiah going on loan to somebody like Newcastle, or a club like that, and doing well, scoring goals. I mean, he didn't get much of a chance at Leeds when he was there. Maybe didn't fit in with Bielsa's style, which you can understand why. It's a very unique style, isn't it? I could have a club in the Premier League. I think he could do quite well, score a lot of goals, but he's had plenty of chances at Arsenal. He's not good enough for what we need. Good luck to the lad. I hope he does well. Like Willock, I hope they go on and have great careers, because they're our players. And players that's come through our academy have played for the first team at Arsenal and then gone on and left and gone elsewhere. I've generally tried to follow their careers because I like the players. I like that they've come through our system and they've gone on to be successful elsewhere. That's great, and hope these two go on and do that as well. And I'm sure that they will, because I think they're good enough to do that. They're just not good enough for us. They've had the opportunities and haven't been able to do it. Would another manager maybe get more from Willock in Arsenal? I'm not sure. And then Nketiah, no, I'm not sure. But anyway, personally, that's my thoughts on that at this moment in time. Totally agree with Tony that I would put Balogun ahead of Nketiah in the squad now and move Nketiah on at the end of the season and look to sell him on to somewhere else in the Premier League, possibly, because I'm sure he would do well. So, but yeah. Anyway, I mean, that's pretty much all the topics that I wanted to cover tonight. A lot of stuff to get through. I kind of thought I'd do it a different way tonight, doing it on my own, and obviously with your comments, which have been great. So thanks to all you guys, Shane and Tony, Terry, Gary as well. Brilliant for you guys to be involved as well. So thanks for your comments as well. And everybody earlier as well. Obviously, Conor Harrison, Marble Halls earlier as well in the chat. So thanks to everybody there as well. Everybody else that's been watching. I might do these maybe once a week, just do a little ramble on my own about all the issues of the week that's gone on, because there's always stuff to talk about with Arsenal, isn't there? As we know, there's never a quiet moment, is there, even when we're not playing? Tony says there, Nketiah plus cash for Max Aarons. Well, yeah, that could be a possibility. We certainly need a right back, don't we? So that would solve one problem. And then Balogun can take Nketiah's place in the squad as a backup striker, couldn't he? I suppose that's that's one way of looking at it. Terry says there, another great show, much appreciated. No, I appreciate your support, mate. Good night. And he says to Tony and Shane and Gary, stay safe. No, exactly, yeah. Well, I say thanks for watching, Terry. I say much appreciate your support. You're generally always in the chats on my show, so it's great that you're supporting what I'm doing. So that's much appreciated from my side and everybody else as well tonight. Some great comments as well. Thanks for joining in. So I might make this a regular thing, actually, maybe do it every week, maybe on a Monday, go over the weekend stuff, and then do the usual stuff, then building up later on in the week. I mean, what I will have coming up on the channel, I will be doing a preview of the Villarreal game, doing the usual stuff there, looking at previous meetings. We've played them before, of course, in the semi-final as well, let's not forget. Also as well, the current form that they're in, our current form as well, possible lineups, that kind of stuff. And that'll probably go out either tomorrow or Wednesday. And then obviously I'll do a watch along as well on Thursday. Tony says, yeah, good show, guys. See you next time. Stay safe. Yeah, and yourself, Tony, again, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching and your comments. Hopefully see you next time as well. I say we'll be doing a watch along, like I say, on Thursday for that big semi-final, and then the Newcastle game at the weekend. Of course, I'm going on a couple of Newcastle channels towards the end of the week as well, previewing that game, and I'll probably do something on this channel as well, previewing the game as well. That's going to be good. I might do a picture quiz, actually, an Arsenal Newcastle picture quiz at some point later on in the week as well, so stay tuned for that. If you haven't done so, I know most of you guys in the chat have done, but please subscribe. If you're new here, the button down in the corner there, it is free of charge. It helps the channel to grow, and that would be much appreciated. Give it a like as well if you've enjoyed the show. And I say I will look to maybe do this on a more regular basis going forward in the future. This will go out on Spotify as well. I'll upload the audio to Spotify. So if you're watching Daniel Ek, I'm using your platform for my podcast. So if that helps you to decide to buy Arsenal, then that'd be great. But yeah, hopefully everyone out there that's on Spotify, and might get more Arsenal fans on Spotify now. So that might help my my Spotify channel to grow. So if you are out there in Spotify land, I'll upload it tonight, so it'll go. It'll be live in about probably an hour or so. If you want to listen back to it, or if you missed it and you want the audio, that will be on there as well. So thanks to everybody for tuning in. A couple of last comments. We've got Shane there, says, great stream. Thanks, lads. Thanks, Terry. Take it easy, lads. Come on, you goonies. Exactly. And Gary there as well says, yeah, thanks, Terry. Great being in the chat. It's been great having all of you guys in the chat. And it's good that you're all getting on with each other as well, so it's nice. But I say the one thing I do want to start looking at is a way to get all fans to come together to get rid of VAR, because it's doing my head in, and it's preventing me from, or it's making me fall out of love with the game, actually, which is a sad situation. I know it's not just me that feels like that. So that's what we need to do as fans, come together and kick VAR out, kick racism out, kick the owners out, and kick VAR out as well. So we're going to do a lot of kicking, aren't we, over the next few weeks and few months. Let's hope that our kicking's successful and we get rid of all the bad, negative stuff that's attached itself to football in recent times. Actually, we need to get rid of it all, don't we? And start afresh and go back to basics. One referee in the middle, two assistant referees, a fourth official just to hold the ball up. And there we go. Jobs are good and we crack on with that. So excellent. Well, I say thanks for watching and thanks for watching. So please like before you go and subscribe if you haven't done so. Before we go, here he is there. Say Daniel Ek, if you are watching, mate, you're welcome to be a part of the Arsenal family, definitely. And I say I am on your platform, Spotify as well, so please tune in there as well. And that will be much appreciated. And Gary says, great show, Richard. No, thank you very much, Gary. And Tony says, let's get kicking. Exactly, yeah. We've got a lot of kicking to do, haven't we? So let's get cracking on it. As soon as we start kicking, then hopefully the quicker we'll get the right results and we can make the game and the sport better for everybody. Certainly that's how I feel anyway. So, yeah, it seems like you guys are on board with that. So that's what we need to start doing. So, yeah, brilliant. So thanks for tuning in to everyone. I say I will see you guys live on probably Thursday now for the watch time. I'll have a couple of videos out in the meantime on the semi-final preview, and also I'll maybe do another history one. I enjoyed that one today, actually, looking back on the semi-finals. Got some good feedback on that. So if you haven't watched that, please check that out as well. And I say stay tuned for the watch along Thursday. Tense night that will be, but a big game, exciting game. Looking forward to that. Getting nervous about it already, so I need to calm down. But yeah, lots coming up on the channel in the meantime as well. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching. And in the meantime, of course, as always, we always finish the same way, don't we? Come on, you Gunners! Come on! Big game Thursday. Let's do it.